Dear friends, Samson was a man endowed with extraordinary powers, but afflicted with weakness for women too. While he could kill 1,000 with a jawbone of an ass, he could easily be laid down by a harlot. His only way forward was to look at God alone, to whom he was rightly dedicated as a Nazirite. Join me to find out what got better of him. Hello, brothers and sisters. It is another great day to study the Word of God together. And we have come a long way into understanding God's love and directions in the lives of the Israelites. In our last study, we looked at Ephraim's accusation to Jephthah of not inviting them in the battle against the Philistines and the Ammonites. This jealousy finally led to a conflict between Gilead and Ephraim and the defeat of the latter. After the 6 years of Jephthah's rule and his death, 3 people by the names of Ibzan, Elon, and Abdon judged Israel. Apparently, the last 3 did nothing significant worth mention. Then we have the birth of Samson, a man whose exploits are quite well known to many, and we shall dig more about him today.
Samson is promised a wife. It is amazing that the Spirit of God would come upon a man like this, but it's obvious that God moved through him. I feel that he was a sissy in every department of his life, and in chapter 14 we begin to see it. Judges 14, 1-2. And Samson went down to Timnath and saw a woman in Timnath of the daughters of the Philistine. And he came up and told his father and his mother and said, I have seen a woman in Timnath of the daughters of the Philistine. Now therefore get her for me to wife. I submit to you that only a sissy would do a thing like that. Why didn't he go and talk to the woman and tell her that he loved her and wanted to marry her? Why didn't he go and talk to her father? In those days, some sort of a business arrangement was always made when it came to marriage. Why didn't he take care of that himself? Well, he is a sissy. A mama and a papa had to arrange the marriage for him. This is Samson. Judges 14, 3-4. Then his father and his mother said unto him, Is there never a woman among the daughters of thy brethren or among all my people, that thou goest to take a wife of the uncircumcised Philistines? And Samson said unto his father, Get her for me, for she pleaseth me well. But his father and his mother knew not that it was of the Lord that he sought an occasion against the Philistines, for at the time the Philistines had dominion over Israel. Samson is going to use his marriage as a ruse in order that he might deliver Israel from the Philistine. He starts off well. Samson slays a lion and gives a riddle. Judges 14:5. Then went Samson down, and his father and his mother to Timnath, and came to the vineyards of Timnath, and behold, a young lion rode against him. We have been told that a Nazirite was to keep away from the grapes, but not Samson. Judges 14:6-9. And the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and he rent him as he would have rent a kid, and he had nothing in his hand. But he told not his father or his mother what he had done. And he went down and talked with the woman, and she pleased Samson well. And after a time he returned to take her, and he turned aside to see the carcass of the lion. And behold, there was a swarm of bees and honey in the carcass of the lion. And he took thereof in his hands, and went on eating, and came to his father and mother, and he gave them as they did eat. But he told not them that he had taken the honey out of the carcass of the lion. On his way to Timnath with his parents, Samson was attacked by a lion. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him during this time of emergency, and he killed the lion with his bare hands. During another trip, Samson went to look at the carcass of the lion and discovered a swarm of bees and honey in it. He scooped the honey out with his hands and ate it. He also gave some to his parents, but he did not tell them where he got it. Remember that having contact with the carcass was a violation of the Nazirite law. Judges 14, 10-14. So his father went down unto the woman, and Samson made there a feast, for so used the young men to do. And it came to pass, when they saw him, that they brought 30 companions to be with him. And Samson said unto them, I will now put forth a riddle unto you. If ye can certainly declare it me within the 7 days of the feast, and find it out, then I will give you 30 sheets and 30 change of garments. But if ye cannot declare it me, then shall ye give me 30 sheets and 30 change of garments. And they said unto him, Put forth thy riddle, that we may hear it. And he said unto them, Out of the bitter came forth meat, and out of the strong came forth sweetness. And they could not in 3 days expound this riddle. As was the custom, Samson put on a marriage feast. The feast was held at the bride's home, and all the guests were Philistines. Riddles were a form of entertainment in those days, and Samson gave the guests a riddle. He gave them 7 days in which to find the answer. If they guessed the riddle, then Samson would give them 30 linen garments and 30 cloaks. If they failed to answer this riddle, then they would have to give him 30 linen garments and 30 clothes. Without knowledge about the slain lion and the hive of bees in the carcass, there was no way the 30 guests could solve Samson's riddle. Samson is deceived and slays 30 Philistines. Judges 14:15-18. And it came to pass on the 7th day that they said unto Samson's wife, Entice thy husband, that he may declare unto us the riddle, lest we burn thee and thy father's house with fire. Have ye called us to take that we have? Is it not so? And Samson's wife wept before him and said, Thou must hate me, and lovest me not. Thou hast put forth a riddle unto the children of my people, and hast not told it me. And he said unto her, Behold, I have not told it my father nor my mother, and shall I tell thee? And she wept before him the 7 days while their feast lasted. And it came to pass on the 7th day that he told her, because she lay sore upon him. She told the riddle to the children of her people. And the men of the city said unto him on the 7th day before the sun went down, What is sweeter than honey, and what is stronger than a lion? And he said unto them, If ye had not plowed with my heifer, ye had not found out my riddle. The Philistines appealed to Samson's wife to help them find out the answer to the riddle, if she did not find out what his secret was. They threatened to burn down her father's house with her in it. Now the strongest weapon that a woman has is her tears, and Samson's wife turned hers on for 7 days. I want to tell you that a woman who weeps for 7 straight days and at every meal gets a little tiresome. Finally, he had to give in and tell her the answer to the riddle. He was good at making wisecracks too. He knew where these men got the answer to the riddle. Samson said, If he had not plowed with my heifer, he had not found out my riddle. In other words, you got the answer from my wife. Judges 14:19. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he went down to Ashkelon and slew 30 men of them, and took their spoils, and gave charge of garments unto them which expounded the riddle. And his anger was kindled, and he went up to his father's house. The Spirit of the Lord came upon Samson, and he went down south to Ashkelon. Ashkelon is way down in the south. There he killed 30 men in order to get 30 changes of raiment that he needed to pay off his wager. Samson left in a pout. Notice that he doesn't take his wife with him. He is angry with her for giving away the riddle. Judges 14:20. But Samson's wife was given to his companion, whom he had used as his friend. So the father of the girl gives her to the best man at the wedding. Samson burns the Philistines' crops. Judges 15:1-2. But it came to pass within a while after, in the time of wheat harvest, that Samson visited his wife with a kid. And he said, I will go in to my wife into thy chamber. But her father would not suffer him to go in. And her father said, I verily thought that thou hadst utterly hated her. Therefore I gave her to thy companion. Is not her younger sister fairer than she? Take her, I pray thee, instead of her. After Samson's anger subsided, he went to visit his wife and brought a kid as a present. Her father informed Samson that he thought Samson no longer wanted her, and so he had given her to his friend. Samson did not like this, of course. Judges 15:3-5. And Samson said concerning them, Now shall I be more blameless than the Philistines, though I do them a displeasure. And Samson went and caught 300 foxes, and took firebrands, and turned tail to tail, and put a firebrand in the midst between 2 tails. And when he had set the brands on fire, he let them go into the standing corn of the Philistines, and burnt up both the shocks, and also the standing corn, with the vineyards and olives. Samson apparently felt justified in vengeance on the Philistines. He caught 300 foxes, tied their tails together, and then tied a torch on the tails, set them on fire, and let the animals loose in the fields. Of course, these foxes would really take out on a run, and they would scatter the firebrands everywhere. Actually, friend, this entire episode is like a prank a juvenile would play. Samson certainly doesn't look like God's man here. Judges 15, 6-8. Then the Philistines said, "Who hath done this?" And they answered, "Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite, because he had taken his wife and given her to his companion. And the Philistines came up and burnt her and her father with fire. And Samson said unto them, Though he have done this, yet will I be avenged of you, and after that I will cease. And he smote them hip and thigh with a great slaughter. And he went down and dwelt in the top of the rock, Etham." Notice that this is personal. This has nothing to do with his commission from God to deliver Israel from the Philistines. He is just avenging himself. His actions had nothing to do with delivering Israel. His revenge was personal. Samson slays 1,000 Philistines. After smiting the Philistines with a great slaughter, Samson really had the enemy stirred up. They began looking for him. So he let his own people bind him with ropes in order to protect them from the Philistines. Judges 15:14. And when he came unto Lehi, the Philistines shouted against him, and the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him. And the cords that were upon his arms became as flax that was burnt with fire, and his bands loosed from off his hands. The men of Judah took Samson, their prisoner, to Lehi, which was occupied by the Philistines. The enemy was overjoyed to see Samson being brought to them bound. Then he broke the bands as if there was nothing. Again we see the strength of this man, but not his own strength. Judges 15:15. And he found a new jawbone of an ass, and put forth his hand, and took it, and slew 1,000 men therewith. Samson grabbed the closest weapon, which was the jawbone of a donkey, and attacked the enemy. He killed 1,000 of them. Notice the strength of this man. He could never have done such a thing in his own power, of course. It was the Spirit of the Lord upon him that enabled him to do it. He is beginning to deliver Israel. If only he had kept that goal before him. But he did not, as we shall see in the next chapter. Samson's moral frailty. Judges 16:1-2. Then went Samson to Gaza, and saw there an harlot, and went in unto her. And it was told the Gazites, saying, Samson is come hither. And they compassed him in, and laid wait for him all night in the gate of the city, and were quiet all the night, saying, In the morning, when it is day, we shall kill him. What a playboy Samson was. The men of the city locked up the city, and they said, We'll get him in the morning. Judges 16:3. And Samson lay till midnight, and arose at midnight, and took the doors of the gate of the city, and the 2 posts, and went away with them, bar and all, and put them upon his shoulders, and carried them up to the top of an hill that is before Hebron. Samson got up at midnight, and found the gates of the city locked. So what did he do? He took the gate posts, bar and all, put them on his shoulder, carried them away to the top of the hill that is before Hebron. That would have been about 40 miles away. What he did sounds like a prank of a teenager or a trick of a college student. This boy Samson never did grow up. He had been called to deliver Israel with his mighty power. All he does is use it for his personal advantage. Samson and Delilah. Judges 16:4. And it came to pass afterward that he loved a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. This is the story of Samson, that it is the downfall of Samson. That is the big failure in his life. That is the weak point in his life. He loved a woman. No man falls suddenly into sin. He does it gradually. There was a bank president in a congregation in Texas. This man went to the local jail to hand out tracts and talk to the prisoners. Outwardly, he was an outstanding man. One day, he disappeared. He had gone on vacation. Suddenly, the bank began to miss money. They could not believe that he had taken it. They tried to account for the loss in every other way, but they could not. They finally decided that he must be the one who took the money, and when he did not return from vacation, they began to search for him. After a complete investigation, they discovered that he had been taking money for years. No man falls suddenly into sin. One of the greatest sins that destroys many a man today is the matter of illicit sex. That was Samson's sin. He loved a woman whose name was Delilah, and as far as we know, he made no attempt to marry her. Judges 16:5-7. And the lords of the Philistine came upon her, and said unto her, Entice him, and see wherein his great strength lieth, and by what means we may prevail against him, that we may bind him to afflict him, and we will give thee every one of us 1,100 pieces of silver. And Delilah said to Samson, Tell me, I pray thee, wherein thy great strength lieth, wherein thou mightest be bound to afflict thee. And Samson said unto her, If they bind me with 7 green withs that were never dried, then shall I be weak, as be another man. You may be sure that Delilah was more interested in the silver than she was in Samson. Once again, the Philistine leaders had found a way to get to Samson. Notice that he teases her at first. He begins to give her answers. But there are wrong answers. He broke the cords with no effort at all till his strength was known. Judges 16:10-11. And Delilah said unto Samson, Behold, thou hast mocked me and told me lies. Now tell me, I pray thee, wherewith thou mightest be bound. And he said unto her, If they bind me fast with new rope that never were occupied, then shall I be weak, and be as another man. Again he is playing with her. He is kidding her along. He allowed her to tie him up with ropes. Then when she cried, The Philistines are upon thee, Samson, he broke the ropes like they were a thread. Now Delilah is really exasperated. She is frustrated with her boyfriend. Judges 16:13-14. And Delilah said unto Samson, Hitherto thou hast mocked me, and told me lies. Tell me wherewith thou mightest be bound. And he said unto her, If thou weavest the 7 locks of my head with the web. Then she fastened it with the pin, and said unto him, The Philistines be upon thee, Samson. And he awakened out of his sleep, and went away with the pin off the beam, and with the web. Now Samson is beginning to weaken. May I say to you, friend, this is the beginning of the end of this man. He is getting close to the truth, now as he mentions his hair. But he is still teasing with her, and when she says, The Philistines are upon thee, Samson, he picks the whole thing up and walks away with it. Let's close here, dear friends. We know how sin creeps into our life as we slowly yet steadily give in to our pleasures. Samson is here playing the fool, using his God-given abilities for his frolic, only leading him to his own death. Dear friends, may we be more wary of the purpose of the gifts God has given us and use it wisely for God's kingdom. God bless you.
Dear friends, we all have one weakness or the other, like Samson or many other saints of God. On the other hand, we could also be endowed with wonderful gifts, sometimes with even better gifts than the rest of our family members or friends. In such circumstance, God's expectation is that we depend on Him always, for He alone can sustain us righteously, and in doing so, use our talents for His glory alone. Other than Him, brothers and sisters, it would be too difficult to handle both our weaknesses on one hand and our strength on the other in a right way. Our hearts should realize this. To not fear God is to automatically flirt with sin and destruction. For Samson, it was women, but for many of us, it could be other forms of pleasure, wealth, fame, power, or anything that could entice us to damnation. Dear friends, is God the center of our lives? Have you surrendered your life to God? May the Spirit of God constantly guide and help you. God bless you.